Plain and simple, South Dakota is the most popular trust jurisdiction in the United States. It's more popular than Nevada, Delaware, Wyoming, Alaska, any other trust jurisdiction there is. People from all throughout the country, even from all throughout the world, are coming to South Dakota to do their trust planning. And today I'm going to talk about why it is the most popular trust jurisdiction in the US. So let's get into it. All right, why is South Dakota the most popular trust jurisdiction in the United States? There's a few different reasons, but first I want to say, most people don't realize this, but South Dakota has more registered trust companies than any other state. That itself speaks to the amount of volume of administration there is, trust administration there is to be done in South Dakota. In other states, we see trust companies come and go, but South Dakota has this long-standing record of trust companies that are continuing to operate throughout the decades as new ones continue to pop up as well. Again, the demand is just so significant that they have to create more trust companies to be able to keep up with it. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. But the reasons why it's more popular than Alaska, Nevada, a lot of people think Nevada and Delaware, even Wyoming are the best jurisdictions, but it's not true. South Dakota is the most popular because it has the most flexible laws. And when I say flexible laws, I'm talking about when you can basically change an irrevocable trust, or maybe you can even decant the assets of an irrevocable trust to a new trust. When we say decant, we're talking about assigning those assets from the first trust to the second trust. South Dakota by far has the most liberal laws when it comes to when you can do that. So basically what I'm saying is that you don't get locked into some type of irrevocable trust planning that doesn't work for you or your family long term. There's a ton of flexibility there, right? Flexibility also includes directed trust. So at least in my head, I kind of lump them together. Directed trust means that you can handpick the best equipped individuals or organization to perform certain tasks. So historically, and in most states, they don't have strong directed trust laws, but historically you have to pick one person or one organization, like a trust company, to manage every aspect of the assets of the trust, and then also administer the trust. Now we have a lot more flexibility in that we can part and parcel up these different responsibilities. If you have a financial advisor that you want to manage, specifically manage your portfolio, you can name them in that trust to have that one responsibility, and the legal responsibility is limited specifically to them. If you have another person that you want in charge of distributions, you can name a person, an individual specifically in that role, and limited liability for that role is limited especially to them, specifically to them. Same thing with the administrative trustee. And there's a few other roles as well, but the point is you can part and parcel out, you can name whoever it makes most sense for you to name in these different roles. And other states don't offer this holistic part and parceling of these responsibilities. They also don't well define who has legal responsibility and who doesn't have legal responsibility. And that's really important. Next, I want to talk about privacy. South Dakota by far surpasses any other state when it comes to privacy laws. I want to talk about no state income taxation. This is something that you see among the most favorable states, but coupled with these other things that I'm talking about, the no state taxation is extremely, extremely popular. Asset protection. South Dakota, among these states, has the best asset protection laws. So particularly around what we call the fraudulent conveyance doctrine and the statute of limitations. So they're much, much more in favor of the debtor or the person that has set up the trust or the person who is a beneficiary of the trust. And there's a few other things that I could say, but I want to close the video out by saying that South Dakota has the most long-standing record of any state of being the most progressive in its trust laws and making sure that these trust laws continue to modernize over time. So in that, we see that with what they have called the governor's task force that's dedicated to trust planning and administration. So it's an ongoing task force to make sure that South Dakota is the most progressive with its trust laws. And we just saw new trust laws come out in South Dakota effective July 1st. They now have a tax advisor role that it's going back to that idea of the directed trust. But so we're seeing continued progress in South Dakota. And then lastly, how we've seen this is that South Dakota was the first state in the United States to have a true dynasty trust. So a lot of times this phrase is used generically. In some states will say, some people, like in Texas, people will say, oh, I want a dynasty trust. Well, in Texas, there isn't true dynasty trust planning. You can set up a trust, but there's an indefinite amount of time that it can last. It can't last forever. Whereas in South Dakota, they were the first state back in the 80s to do away with what's called the rule against perpetuities, and they have a true dynasty trust. The trust can live forever. Therefore, if you do the planning correctly, it avoids wealth transfer taxes, estate tax, generation skipping tax, those types of things. So these are the reasons why South Dakota is by far the most popular trust jurisdiction in the United States.